Hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We are excited to hear about end-to-end NAV solutions for manufacturing and distribution with InsightWorks. Mark Hamblin is going to be doing our presentation today. And before we get started, there are just a couple of quick pieces of housekeeping. First, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the question box and we will get them called out and answered for you. Second, we do record this in all of our webinars, so if you want to view the recording or have someone else in your organization see it, you can find it later this afternoon at innovia.com. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Mark Hamblin. He is the president of InsightWorks, a software development and consulting firm specializing in add-ons for Microsoft NAV. Mark has spent many years working in manufacturing and distribution before leveraging that experience to create software for those industries. As part of his software development career, Mark created curriculum and taught computer engineering at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology and is currently chair of the Computer Engineering Advisory Committee. Mark also serves as a member on the NAV Board of Advisors. And in addition to being voted one of the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology top 50 alumni since the Institute was founded, Mark has led his company to be recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. So now, without further ado, we will get started with our webinar today.
Hi, good morning everyone, or afternoon, depending on, I guess it's morning everywhere for most of the people on here. Hopefully you're ready to go through and see some of the solutions that we have to offer to help improve your NAV experience. So I'll run through a little bit of introduction to who we are, and then we'll jump in and talk about how we can potentially help with NAV. So a little bit about us. We're a global manufacturer and distributor of software for NAV. We focus primarily on manufacturing distribution, some service-oriented type work. But really we're focused on sort of the industrial side of the world. We're based in Edmonton, Canada. We have 2 offices here, and we also have offices in Milwaukee, Australia, and Toronto. We're nearing about 40 employees, and we have a worldwide client base. Most of our work is in North America, but we do have installs worldwide. We do have, we're coming up close to about 500 installs of the products. I threw a few sample clients up here. Just to give you an idea of the scale. We work from customers anywhere where they have 2 people in the warehouse to a couple of thousand people in manufacturing facilities. So we can scale all the way from if you're a smaller organization all the way up to guys like Ford and Honda and people like that. So the solutions are very applicable to a wide range. And so that's really all I wanted to cover about us. You can always go to the website if you want more information or contact us afterwards. But let's talk a little bit about you. And what we want to talk about is really why you have NAV. And the reason you bought an ERP system or a NAV and specifically is because you need to deal with that data. You've got this electronic data and the inventory, POs, things like that. And that's really a competitive advantage. I mean, that's why BI is so big nowadays, Power BI and all the other vendors, is because if you can get that data out of your system and it's timely and accurate, I mean, that's a gold mine. You can stock the appropriate amount of inventory, you're reducing your expediting costs, all these sorts of things. But again, that has to be timely and accurate in order for that to be meaningful and useful. So the big issue is the fact that you've got these physical transactions. Unfortunately, we have to deal with the real world a little bit, right? You've got a warehouse, you've got a manufacturing floor, you've got parts counter, whatever you have to do. And every one of those environments requires that you do something physically with your product to make it happen. And then basically dealing with that, bringing those physical transactions into NAV, making sure that NAV matches your physical world is the real issue. And what we typically see is, people have a paper-based system for various things, or they have inefficient mechanisms for getting the data into NAV, and they're going to lose paperwork. They're going to, type in improper information. The process is too inefficient to capture everything you need, or it makes it more error prone, those types of things. So getting those physical transactions into NAV is really the biggest problem that most organizations face, right? Making sure that your physical world matches your virtual world inside NAV, so you can actually extract that data and make use of it. If you're making these errors, you're adding a lot of cost to your organization, right? If I don't record a shipment, for example, my inventory says I got way more than I actually have in stock. I might sell it again, and then I have to expedite it to meet the customer demand, or I'm shipping it late and the customer's angry and they're going somewhere else, I received something but I haven't posted that in NAV yet, so it looks like I'm short inventory, so I expedite inventory, and now I'm paying additional freight costs, I'm carrying extra inventory. All those sorts of things are going to cost you money very quickly. So really what we want to do is we want to make it easier to sync that physical world and the virtual world. And where we do that is across the organization. So we have really, starting at the time of purchasing all the way to where you're reporting on that information, we'll fill in the gaps with NAV. So our philosophy really is, NAV is a solid foundation and it does a ton of stuff, but there are a few gaps here and there that we can actually fill with very point solutions. So when we come in, we're not coming in with, buy our database and you're stuck with us and it's a massive change to everything you're doing. It's where do you have a really significant issue, a point problem, that we can come in and we can put in a nice point solution that meets that requirement, fills that gap, and makes it easier for you to capture that information. So again, all the way from procurement to receiving, manufacturing, we're very strong in as well. Any of the warehouse management, all the way through even payroll, unfortunately Canadian payroll only, but time and attendance, all of that type of stuff in the US and worldwide we can do. So all of those things we manage. And how we do that, these are the products that are primary products. There's a number of other ones that you can actually get on our website, like enhanced planning worksheets and things like that for making it easier to do planning and other activities. But these are the general products that we provide. And this is what we use to fill those gaps in that. So the first one, Warehouse Insight. I'll run through these and I'll get into a little more detail later, and you will actually get to see some software. So before you decide you're going to run away, you will actually get to see what these things look like and see how they might work within a NAV environment. So Warehouse Insight, basically mobile WMS. So anything that you do in NAV from a warehousing perspective and manufacturing, we can do consumption output with it. You can use mobile devices to go out, scan barcodes, capture that information, do shipping, do receiving, do all of those sorts of things from a mobile device. And again, that's one of the key things. Those physical transactions that you're performing in the warehouse, we can now capture at the time you perform the transaction. We can validate it, we can put it in NAV, and now you've got real-time information. You actually know what's going on. There's no transcription errors, any of those sorts of things. And we call it Warehouse Insight because it's more than just automated data collection. It actually gives the people on the shop floor insight into what needs to be done. They can make decisions. It's more of a decision support tool out on the shop floor. So they've got the context, they've got the information they need to actually make decisions about what's going on, so we can improve efficiencies beyond just automating the data collection. The shop floor insight is the manufacturing side. So I mentioned we can do some manufacturing with the Warehouse Insight. For consumption output, it's very material oriented. The shop floor insight is more activity or labor oriented. So if you're a manufacturer, we can capture labor time, we can do time and attendance, calculate overtime, all of those sorts of things, and keep track of that in real time with NAV. So it's really the simplest way of looking at it is it's barcoded labor collection. but it does quite a bit more than just that. It's got a full quality module, a safety logbook, time and attendance, dispatching, graphical scheduling. All of those sorts of things are built into this tool here, and for manufacturers. The advanced inventory count. This is really a must-have. If anybody is got a significant amount of inventory or is doing annual physical counts or cycle counts, you really need this tool. You know, the standard NAV physical inventory journal or warehouse physical inventory journal are fine up to a point, but they have a ton of gaps. And this is one example of where we're really filling those gaps that are going to make your life a lot easier in NAV. So typically this thing pays for itself the first time you use it, whether you're doing a paper-based count or using scanners to do your count. You know, it's going to fill all of those holes in NAV that cause you problems when you're doing inventory counts, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. This, as I mentioned, works paper-based or can work in conjunction with the mobile scanners as well. Dynamic Ship is a new product for us, released last year. And what it allows you to do is integrate with, you know, carriers like UPS, FedEx, DHL, you know, a bunch of international and even local carriers. And what it'll do is allow you to get rates for your shipments and generate the labels for you automatically out of NAV. So now, you know, at the shipping station, either with a handheld or just within a NAV terminal, you can come up, you can say, I'm packaging, you know, these 3 items in this box, these 2 items in this box, give me the rates for FedEx, and generate a label, and it'll do it all for you very quickly and easily. And it's at a price point and where you can actually get it in. You know, there's other shipping solutions out there, but they tend to be fairly heavy. So it means you have to do a lot of modifications in NAV to make them work. There's a steep learning curve, all of those sorts of things. This allows almost anybody to really automate the generation of shipping labels and rate shopping and everything else. Because it is a very lightweight tool that we can plug in, and it's a very low cost tool as well. The 365 Payroll. So most of these are all within NAV. Everything is moving to Dynamics 365 as well at some point. We do have our payroll package in 365. So if you happen to be in Canada, we do have a Canadian payroll package available. No timeline on getting that into the rest of North America. For Canada, it's great. The point of sale. So there's a lot of people out there, and maybe you're one of them, you know, that has a parts counter or has a small retail outlet or something like that. You don't need, you know, a massive point of sale solution. You know, you don't need to go and spend $50,000, you know, to, you know, do a few sales over the counter a day or something like that, or maybe even a couple hundred sales over the counter a day. So this is what you really need. What it does, it extends NAV, it fills those gaps in NAV to allow you to do counter sales, to accept multiple payment methods on a single order, to take deposits for special orders, you know, to scan in barcodes to do your sales, those sorts of things. So really where this is targeted is, you know, manufacturers that have a parts counter, you know, warehouses that have an outlet store, small retailers, that type of thing. And again, the price point is such that, you know, it doesn't make sense to live with base NAV to do those types of things, or to even do a customization. To plug this in, you know, a few hours worth of work to plug it in and get going, and you've got a point of sale solution built into NAV. Sort of along with that is our sales configurator. And what that allows you to do is configure items. So, you know, if you use a standard NAV demo data of building a bicycle, you know, I could bring up a type of bicycle, like a touring bike that I want to sell, and I could change the handlebars, I could choose different seats, you know, different brakes, whatever you want. You choose all those options, and it'll build up the bill of materials for you automatically, and the routing if you do production orders. So it'll build assembly bombs, production bombs, routings, you know, special instructions, all of those sorts of things. And again, it's a very quick and easy implementation. We're not out there to compete with, you know, the guys that are charging $100,000 for a configurator. This is something that almost anybody can plug in and start using almost immediately, and use it to grow. We've got customers that have thousands, literally, of configurable types of items that they use it for. So it can scale fairly dramatically. But, you know, again, we're at a price point that it almost makes it mandatory to have something like this if you have configurable items. NAV Extender is pretty cool. NAV Extender is completely free, so you can download it off the website. There's no license you have to add to NAV or any of that sort of thing, and there's no modifications you need to do to NAV. And what it allows you to do is now drag and drop documents to any NAV page and have them get copied to your network storage area and create a record link in NAV for you. So what that means is now you just run this application. You can drag and drop from email, you can drag and drop from your Windows Explorer, whatever you like, and it'll automatically link those documents and copy them to your file storage area. So you don't you don't have to manually create links or any of that sort of thing. So it's a very nice little tool. You can download it, have it up and running within about 5 minutes, and you can do drag and drop into NAV. Okay. The last one, if you're a larger manufacturer or you have complex scheduling requirements, that's when you need to come and talk to us. So we have an advanced planning and scheduling tool that is used to schedule your manufacturing facilities. This is, we haven't historically sold this with NAV. We've had this for quite a few years. And, the guys like Ford and Honda that you saw on the slide of sample customers, those guys use it to actually schedule their automotive production. So, there's 4 plants in Ohio for Honda. Every one of them uses this. Every vehicle that goes through those plants is actually scheduled with this software. Freightliner, Ford uses it globally for all their stamping plants. So it's a pretty significant piece of software. And now that we're selling with NAV, we brought the cost down as well on that. So it's more affordable sort of for the NAV community, and we're not just targeting these billion-dollar organizations for scheduling. So again, if any scheduling requirements you have where you need a schedule to be generated, an optimal schedule to be generated for the shop floor, that's where we fit in with this. Now, normally if we're doing this interactively, I'd say, hey, are there any questions? But if you do have any questions, just put them in the chat box and we can deal with them after the fact. I'll skip through these slides really quickly. This is the warehouse insight I talked about earlier. And I'll just bring up this slide here, because it gives you an idea of everything that's included within that package. So essentially anything that's inventory or warehouse oriented within NAV, you can do now on the mobile device. And even if you have custom requirements, so we've got this application builder down at the bottom here, that allows you to very quickly and easily extend any of your custom work that's in NAV out to a mobile device without really any significant amounts of development, any issues with future upgrades, any of that sort of thing. So we can build applications that plug into the system externally from NAV. The shop floor data collection I talked about, we'll actually have a look at what this looks like, so I'll skip through this pretty quickly. But really a full-featured MES solution for the shop floor. We can integrate directly with machines. We can use barcodes to capture data. We've got facial recognition for time and attendance. It's a very capable system, and with the new pricing that we're introducing, again, it almost becomes mandatory to have this if you're a manufacturer. You just you can't afford not to have it, especially at that price point. There's an ROI calculator on our website where you can go in and you can punch in how many employees you have and that sort of thing, and it'll tell you how long it takes to pay back a system like this. And I can tell you, we've seen very objectively that it takes about 6 months or less to actually pay for a system like this once it's implemented. The advanced inventory count, again, everybody needs this. You should just get it and you'll be happy. It does fill all of those gaps within NAV, provides additional auditing tools. So if you have auditable recounts, discrepancy analysis, all of those sorts of things. It really is a tool that you need if you're doing any sort of significant inventory counting at all. All right. Shipping, I mentioned that, again, the price point on this, you can get in for about $3,000. So I typically don't mention pricing on these things, but just to give you an idea of where a lot of this pricing sits, this dynamic ship sits at about that price range. It integrates with over 100 different carriers, U.S., Canadian, international, customs, third-party billing, hazardous material management, all of that kind of stuff is all included. You basically package up your stuff, it'll get your rate, get you a label, and it's out the door. So it dramatically simplifies the shipping side of things for you, and more accurately tracks your costs. You can use the freight rates that it gives you to, you can mark those up and put them on the sales order automatically, those types of things. So a nice tool for managing your shipping department. The document drag and drop, I mentioned NAV Extender again. If you go to navextender.com or just our InsightWorks website, you'll find it. You can download it. In about 2 minutes after you run the install, you'll be able to drag and drop into NAV. That's how it works. Very simple. No NAV modifications. You don't have to be a NAV developer, any of that kind of stuff to do it. There's a video online that walks you through the setup, and away you go. And you can now drag and drop your documents into NAV. 365 payroll I'll skip. It's again mostly focused on Canadian payroll, possibly moving into the US at some point. Point of sale, I spent a lot of time talking about that already. I'll just leave this slide up a bit in case people are looking at the video afterwards to see some of the things, but you can also go to the website and check that out. But again, if you've got any type of parts counter, any type of retail or B2B sales where you're taking cash or check or whatever, this is the tool that you want to use. It basically fills all the gaps in standard NAV sales orders and sales invoices to actually allow you to use it at a parts counter or at a retail counter. The configurator talked about, very quick and simple to set up and use, and allows you to build up your products very quickly and easily without having to worry about remembering item numbers or searching by description or anything like that. You just fill in your options, bang, it gives you an item that already exists or creates a new one for you based on your selections. And the final one, the planning and scheduling. Again, if you've got a complex environment or you're a larger company that needs a scheduling solution, that's what this is. This is not for somebody that's got 10 people on the shop floor and you want a little graphical scheduler. That's what the time collection module, our shop floor insight, is for. This is if you actually want to go out, have it generate an optimal schedule, do setup minimization, color sequencing, lot splitting, any of those sorts of more advanced things. That's what this thing is for. So just to give you an idea of what it can do. All right, so that was the boring PowerPoint. You've had to listen to me for far too long. Let's jump in and actually have a look at some of these tools that I just talked about. So I can't cover off, all 10 or whatever those products. So I'll just zip through, some of the more, common ones that people tend to have a broader need for. The first one is our Warehouse Insight product, and this again runs on a mobile device. So I've actually got this mobile device in my hand that you see here, and I can move the screen around and all that kind of thing. And this is what we'd use to extend NAV out to the shop floor to again verify those physical transactions, to sync the physical world and the virtual world together very quickly and easily. And so what this allows me to do is again go and scan any barcode on an item and ship it, receive it, pick it, move it, any of those sorts of things. So these are all the standard apps that come with it, including production and assembly orders. So we can pick and output assemble to stock orders. We can do production orders, consumption and output, that type of thing. We've got an inquiry mode that allows us to drill down into an item card, if you will, on the handheld. So for example, if I'm shipping something or if I'm picking something and I can't find it, I can actually drill down to get more insight into what that item is and where it might be in the warehouse and what it looks like. So the inquiry mode is quite nice. The advanced count, that's a tool I was talking about earlier that makes inventory counts much more effective. We've got some case studies online on that. But again, that generally pays for itself the first time. We had one example where it used to be 20 people counting for 5 days because everything they had in their warehouse was serialized. So you can imagine that's a lot of hours to spend on an inventory count. They implemented this and the count went down to 1 day. So they saved basically 80 man days immediately after they started using this. Now, not everybody's going to have that level of success, but most people dramatically decrease their count time and improve the accuracy of the counts. So there's a number of other things. I won't go through them all. We've got some offline processing. We can handle any NAV configuration configuration. So you see we've got picks and putaways and everything listed here. But if you don't use those, that's fine. We can receive directly against a PO. We can ship directly against a sales order or a transfer order. If you don't have bins enabled, that's fine too. We don't need bins enabled. So really any warehouse configuration you have, even if you're on the NAV starter pack, we can plug this in and you're immediately able to start using to scan barcodes to perform your transactions. So I'll give you a quick example by doing a pick, let's say. So I'll go into picking, and I could scan a barcode here if I have a paper pick document, or I can use the lookup button, and I'm going to look up all the picks that are available in the system, and it's going to come up, and I can choose a pick. If I want to go paperless, I can have it auto-assigned to me, but I'm going to choose pick number 11 here, open that up, and what it does is it shows me that entire pick document on the screen at one time. Now, there's also a card view, if you're familiar with the NAV ADCS or the older style interfaces that show you one line at a time. You can enable that as well, but I like this view because it gives me the context I need for this pick. You know, I'm a warehouse worker. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? What exactly do I need to do today to, execute this pick? And I might look at this, and when I loaded this up, I'm standing in front of this bin 0412. So that's where I want to pick from. I don't want to pick from that bin 0101 at the beginning. That's the other side of the warehouse. So I want to start, where I'm standing. So all I have to do, because I have bins enabled, I simply scan the bin. Now, if you didn't have bins enabled, of course, this bin field wouldn't be here. But I scanned the bin, and it highlights the first line with that. And you notice I didn't have to, tell it I was going to scan a bin or choose a certain edit box or anything. I just scan a barcode, and it knows what I'm trying to do and reacts accordingly. So I scan the bin, and then the next thing I want to do is pick the item out of that particular bin. So I'll go to the LS10PC, and that's the barcode I'm going to scan. So when I scan that, what it does is it optionally shows me the picture, and we'll just wait for the screen lag here a little bit. So it shows me the picture and allows me to enter a quantity that I'm picking for that particular item. So let's say 10. Now this quantity can default into whatever I like. I have it set up to default to 0, and I enter the quantity, and that's it. I scan the bin, I scan the item, I enter the quantity. That's my entire process. If I don't have bins enabled, I scan the item, I enter the quantity. Now in this case, I took 10, I've got 4 outstanding, and I've got a problem. So what do? I can't find those other 4. So I could flag this for cycle count. I could do a cycle count here. I could maybe do a Kanban pull or something. This menu, incidentally, is completely configurable. This Kanban pull is a menu item I added, in about 10 minutes or less, to populate a requisition worksheet for the line I'm on. So you can extend the system very, very easily without modifying any of the code. But what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to add a note. I'm going to yell at somebody and say, it's not here. So I'm going to use a standard text code that I define in NAV, not here. And I'm going to say it's the LS10PC that wasn't here. And I'm just typing on the keypad on the handheld device. And what that did, if I go into NAV and look at the notifications, it puts that in there, and I can click on it, and it takes me to the pick, and I can see exactly what's going on with that. Okay, so that's great. I've got that two-way communication with NAV, with my supervisor, to let them know that something's an issue. But I also need to complete this pick. So what I'll do is I can hit a hotkey. You can set up hotkeys for any of this, but I'm going to tap the screen, and I'm going to do this item inquiry. And what that does is it drills down and gives me more detail about that particular item. So if it wasn't in the bin that I was at, I can see the other bins that might reside in. If this was a lot tracked item, it would also list the lot numbers in each bin and the expiration date, so I can pick the oldest product, that type of thing. Or if I just want to have a look at what it's supposed to look like, maybe I get to an empty bin and I don't know what it looks like, I could drill down, see the picture, and maybe it's sitting in the bin beside where it's supposed to be. So the whole point of this is to get you that insight that you need into the warehouse operations. So the guys on the warehouse floor don't have to run back to the office, don't have to run to a NAV terminal to figure out what to do. They can do it all sort of where they're standing, improve the efficiencies. So it's beyond just simple data collection. It's actually more decision support capabilities as well. All right, enough of that. The other thing I'll show you is the inventory count. So what I'll do is I'll come in here, and this lists all the count sheets available to me. And you define these count sheets in NAV ahead of time for cycle counts or full physicals. We also have the concept of an ad hoc physical count. or cycle count, which allows me to just, if I'm a warehouse supervisor and I've got that capability enabled for me, I can pick up a scanner, I can go scan a bunch of items or bins, I can look at the discrepancies right on the handheld and post it from the handheld. So I don't have to go anywhere near a NAV terminal to quickly do a cycle count or a quick inventory adjustment on a number of items. But in this case, I have predefined some sheets. Today I'm going to be team 1. We're doing a full physical. It supports full physical and cycle counts. But today I'm going to be team 1. So open up my count sheet, and what happens is it starts out blank. So this is one of the modes of operation we have. We have one where we can predefine the count sheet and say, you go count these 30 items and these 10 bins or whatever it is. And the other mode, if you're doing a full physical count, is you just hand a scanner to Billy and you say, Billy, you go count that rack, and Fred, you go count this rack, and so on and so forth. And then all they do is they walk up and they scan everything they find. So instead of NAV telling them what they should go out and find, they're telling NAV what's actually out in the warehouse. So to do this, I simply scan the bin. I scan the item in that particular bin. I'll give it a sec here. This screen share is taking its time. And then I enter the quantity that I counted that particular item, and then I scan, the next item, and so on and so forth. If it's a serialized item, actually I will scan a serialized item here just to give you an example. So if I've got serial numbers or lot numbers in the system, so I'll just scan one with the serial number. Ideally the barcode has the serial number in it, or there's a barcode for the serial number. And if it does, it'll automatically bring in the serial number. It doesn't ask me for the quantity because it knows that. We can handle any barcode format that you can throw at us. If you generate your own barcodes out of the system, we can do data matrix, a 2D barcode, so we can fit a ton of information into a barcode to limit the amount of scanning or interaction people have to have with the screen or the handheld device. Now that's basically it. That's how I do my inventory counts. I just scan, scan, scan. Within NAV, there's a full module for inventory counts that'll allow me to do my discrepancy analysis, to do recounts that are auditable. All of those sorts of things are available within that inventory count module. And again, it works paper-based or with a scanner, either way. Okay. All right, so again, if you have any questions about any of what I just showed you, just dump them into the chat box or save them up for the end. We've got about another 10 minutes and then we'll open it up for questions. All right, the next thing I'll show you that's also fairly common is the labor collection for the shop floor. So what I just showed you was, material handling, where I've got a warehouse or a parts room and I need to pick things for production. I deliver them to production, and now, somebody on the production floor takes over. I've got somebody doing a sawing operation or assembly or welding or whatever it happens to be, and they need to start capturing their time against those activities, and maybe recording the consumption of the material that that the guy just brought over using the handheld scanner. So the way we do that is with our shop floor insight. So this is what it looks like. It runs in a browser, so you can throw it out on the shop floor with a thin client terminal like a Chromebox or Stick PC or Wise terminal or whatever it happens to be. Anything that runs a browser is fine. And what the employees typically do is they'll have a badge, a barcoded badge that they use to identify themselves at the terminal, and they can scan that badge to unlock the terminal and look at their time card for the day. So in this case, this employee, when he scans in, he sees his time card. But we can also set it up, so I just scan a different badge here, so now it's Linda instead of me, where we see a dispatch list instead of the time card. Where this is useful is if I've got, let's say, a drilling work center, I scan in at that particular work center, and it shows me all the upcoming work at that drilling work center, right? And if I have a touch screen, it's nice because I just tap on it, tap clock on, and start my work. Now this one you'll notice happens to be the job dispatch. This is a list of all the jobs. We can capture time against jobs, production orders, assets, service orders, non-productive time, all of those sorts of things. I can also see a production dispatch list, so this is my production orders that I have in my facility that need to be worked on. And again, if you're using touch screen or mouse and keyboard, if you want to go paperless, I can tap on one of these and clock on to that activity. However, we tend to prefer barcode scanning because you don't want your guys out there using a mouse and keyboard necessarily. So if I have a shop traveler, I simply scan a barcode on there. Single scan identifies the operation, the line number, and the production order I'm dealing with and brings it up. So I've scanned my badge to clock in. I scan the activity I'm working on. I walk away and do my work. The screen will lock after 30 seconds or whatever you set it to, or I can scan my badge again to lock the terminal. I'll scan it twice. Actually, I think I hit End Shift there. And then when I come back, I simply scan the next activity I'm working on, and it'll clock me off the old activity. Okay, so now that's all there is to it. I scan a badge to open the terminal. I scan the activity I'm working on. I do my work. I come back. I scan the next activity. I do that work, and away we go. Now, this one was a production order, but as I mentioned, I can also do things like non-productive time, so sweeping in this case. I can do jobs. I can do fixed assets. All of that kind of stuff I can track at any level of detail. So the non-productive time also integrates with the safety logbook. So for example, if I've got a first aid or an injury or something like that, I can track that time on the shop floor and then also record the details in the safety logbook, which can do hazard assessments and incidents and all those sorts of things. So if you're doing your safety program in Excel, this is a big step up, and you can manage it all from within NAV. Now back to production orders. I'll show you a couple other little things there. So I scan a production order, and over here it gives me my components, my BOM, and I can actually record point of use consumption. So if I need to track lot numbers or serial numbers at point of use, I can actually enter that here, or just normal consumption. So if you do any point of use consumption, you want the operators to enter that, you can do it from here. I can scan in lot numbers and serial numbers to record the consumption here as well. I've also got work instructions. So these are, they might be customer specific instructions, or they might be, routing specific instructions. So this is my standard routing, and every time I perform this activity, these are the work instructions that show up. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to have reams of paper anymore to show people what to do. Now, in addition to the BOM and the work instructions, we can also see document links. So using NAV Extender as an example, like if I've drag and drop, drawing files or, quality inspection documents or any of that sort of thing into NAV onto the item card, production order, routing, those will show up here. And then they can launch it on the shop floor and actually see what they need to do. We can also do quality inspections. So the quality inspections is nice. You can define your own quality inspection checklist within NAV. You can use it for receiving inspections, shipping inspections, asset inspections, people inspections if you really want. But in the shop floor, it's tied to an operation. And what that allows me to do is define any sort of tests that I want to perform along with limits and everything else, and then come in here and then record that data. So for example, I can come in, enter quality, that sort of thing, between 3 and 5 is acceptable. So if I enter 4, we can see that it's now a pass. I can record that by lot number and serial number as well. So what this allows me to do is, of course, build up those inspections, record the results here, perform retests, everything else, and now I've got everything I need associated with that production order to do my quality reporting on, my birth certificate type stuff, if I need to for this particular product. Okay. And again, in NAV, if I want to use it for shipping inspection, like is the instruction book in there, was the serial number tag attached, all that kind of stuff before I'm actually allowed to ship, you can do that in NAV as well. Okay. So fairly full-featured client interface. There's a lot more in NAV, of course, that goes along with it, like the time and attendance portion, where we have a separate time clock interface with facial recognition or barcode scanning. We've got the supervisor approvals, we've got project level approvals. So if you're more of a project-based manufacturer, we have a project manager. We can have a project level approval versus a supervisory approval, all of those sorts of things. Very powerful, comprehensive tool. And definitely, if this is of interest to you, even a little bit, check on the pricing of this new pricing scheme that we're rolling out. Makes it almost mandatory. If you have labor that you need to track, you can't beat this thing. All right. While I'm in here, got a few more minutes. I'll show you a little bit about NAV Extender as well. That's again the free tool that allows you to do drag and drop into NAV. So when you run it and install it, what you'll get is you'll get a little application that runs in your tray. That's really all there is to it. And what that then allows me to do is come into any page in NAV, any card or document page in NAV. Like let's say I open up this item card here, come in and, you know, let's grab a few Excel files as an example. I can drag them and you'll notice I'm allowed to drop them now. I can drop them and it will automatically move them onto my network. So in a root folder that I've specified, this SV shared NAV files, it'll put them in a specific directory, it'll link them up, and away I go. That's all there is to it. It can be from email, whatever you like. It does create the links here, of course, but if I want to see that directory, I can also hit this little button. So you notice this little button now appears in the NAV title bar. If I click on that, it'll actually take me directly to that folder and show me the files that I dropped in. So you'll see it went to the network, to this. It created a directory for the company I'm in, a directory for the type of record I was on, and then an actual directory for the record. So even if you're not running NAV Extender, or if you don't use the record link functionality, I can come in here and very quickly say, oh, you know, did I attach something to sales order 6001? Yes, I did. There it is, right? So it's a very nice little tool, completely free. Download it, run it, and it'll help, you know, improve efficiencies a little bit, especially on the purchasing side, you know, where you want to drop in additional things into NAV, or the sales side where you've got a signed PO or just a PO from a customer. You can link those. On the accounting side, you know, scanned in copy of the bank deposit you want to drop in. Again, any card in NAV, you can drag and drop this stuff into. Very, very quick and easy. All right. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through some of the other things like, you know, this is the point of sale and configurator, that sort of thing. If you are interested in those tools, you know, let us know, and we're happy to do an additional demo for you that's specific to your requirements. So finishing about 3 minutes early for questions. I'm not sure if we'll have, you know, 10 minutes worth of questions, but we'll stop here and open it up for any questions you might have.
Okay, Mark, we do have a few questions. So the first one has to do with warehouse insight questions. And how does Warehouse Insight handle multiple barcode formats?
Oh, good question. So what we have is we have something called Barcode Rules, and it allows us to parse anything we want out of a barcode. So at the risk of making it too scary and technical, this is the barcode rule. So you can configure whatever barcode format you want, and within that barcode we can pull out the item number, variant, serial number, blah blah blah, all of these things across the top, including quantity, unit of measure, and anything that we may never have thought of, we can also extract into custom fields for custom processing. So that's it. So you can come in and you can configure any barcode format you want, and it just magically sucks it out, and we're done.
Okay, great. And I already have UPC codes on my inventory. What needs to happen to move to Warehouse Insight scanning?
What you need is the cross references set up in NAV. So as long as you have those UPC codes mapped to your NAV item number, that you don't need anything else. If they have barcodes on the packages already, you just set up, make sure that NAV has a record of those UPC codes, and that's really all you need.
Okay, and the next question is, when working with multiple quantities of a single item, does the item need to be scanned multiple times?
No. The only time that needs to happen is if you've got a serialized item where you want to track each individual serial number. But if I've got you know, an item with a quantity of 10, I can scan the item once and enter the quantity of 10 or enter the quantity of 5 or whatever you need to deal with. I'm not actually sure if that answered the question 100%, but the short answer is no, you don't have to scan each item individually.
Okay, and this one has to do with NAV Extender. What document types can I attach to my NAV records using NAV Extender?
Anything. Yeah. Doesn't matter. We don't put any restrictions on the document types whatsoever. So there's potentially policies you can put in through Windows security to limit what people can do, but from a NAV Extender perspective, you can drop whatever you like in there.
Okay, and is NAV Extender really free?
That almost sounds like a setup question, but yes, it is really free, really truly. So we'll never charge for it. It's just go to the website, download it. The only thing you need to do is enter your email address to get an email for the link. You don't have to opt into communications or any of that kind of stuff. Download it once and you can install it as many times as you like.
Okay, and what brands of handheld scanners does your inventory count model support?
So most makes and models. We generally prefer, Windows Mobile or Windows Embedded Handheld and up. The older Windows CE devices sometimes work, sometimes don't. Most do, but not always. If we're supplying the devices, which we can supply the devices as well, we typically go with the Data Logic Falcons. They're the best value for the money right now. They also have a camera, which is really nice. Like if I'm at receiving and I got damaged product in, I can take a picture of it right there with the scanner. It'll automatically upload and attach to NAV. So now the purchaser has everything they need to start a freight claim or a claim against the vendor. Similarly, on shipping, I can take a photo of a pallet on a truck, so that if it comes back to me, I can prove it left in good shape, that sort of thing. So the Falcon with the camera is 20% less than competing products out there. So that's usually the one we recommend, but we will work with pretty much any maker model.
Okay, and we spend a lot of time reconciling our inventory counts. Does your count model assist with reconciliation?
Absolutely. That's one of the best things about it. So we have this count difference analysis that'll go in, and when you run this, I can leave all these options off, but it'll actually give you that discrepancy analysis, in this case sorted by amount. And then the really nice thing about it is if you have lot numbers or serial numbers. So in standard NAV, let's say I've got 100 lot numbers in stock and I count 80. Well, NAV doesn't want to know which 80 I counted. It doesn't care. It wants to know which 20 are missing. So then you have to figure out, okay, out of those 100, which 20 didn't I count? And then you have to type in those 20 lot numbers. Well, this deals with that 100%. This will tell you which you didn't count, what was extra, what was missing. And then when I post it, it'll actually make those entries for you automatically. So you don't have to deal with any of that manual junk when you're dealing with serial numbers or lot numbers anymore. But even if you aren't dealing with that, what this does is gives you, so I ran it without turning on any of the options like showing the details or any of that sort of thing. But at a high level, this gives me a breakdown of all my discrepancies on this particular count. So this one's up by 18,000, this one's up by 855, that sort of thing. And then if I show the details, I can find out exactly who counted it, where they counted it, if I have the same item in multiple bins, which one was out. If you don't have bins enabled, one of the nice things is I can count that same item in multiple places in the facility, even though I don't have bins enabled, and it'll automatically add those lines together. So I don't have to manually add everything up and put one quantity in. I can count it in the 5 different places where it lives in the shop, and it'll sum it up for me automatically. And then when I'm doing the reconciliation and I run this report, I can see exactly who counted it, where they counted it, what the discrepancy was at each individual line. Right? So very powerful reconciliation tools for sure. And that does tend to save a ton of time as well. So not only do you save time when you're doing the count, you save a ton of time when you're doing the reconciliation, especially if you have lot numbers and serial numbers. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer for a relatively short question, but it's cool. So
that's okay. The more information, the better. All right, I think that is all the questions. Oh, nope, we got one other one. Hang on 1 second. Does the dynamic ship work in the international version of NAV, like for example, Europe?
Yes, and we have support for a number of European carriers, so we can originate shipments from international locations as well. So it's not just shipping to international locations from the US or Canada. We can actually ship from international locations to other international locations. And for carriers that support it, we can submit the customs information like the commercial invoice electronically. So UPS is an example. We submit all that clearing information electronically so that it's cleared electronically without having that commercial invoice piece of paper, that type of stuff. So yes, we will work in the worldwide version as well as the North American version.
Okay, thank you for that. Give just a few more moments. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to type them into the question box. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate you discussing this topic on end-to-end NAV solutions, and I want to thank everyone for attending. And just to remind you again, this webinar was recorded and it will be available on our website at www.innovia.com later this afternoon. And also click on our past events page. This will give you a listing of our previous webinars that you can watch, pass on to other people if you'd like. And please join us next week for our next webinar that we will be discussing thriving in a changing business-to-business sales landscape with Santa. So they will be doing that for us next week. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you next time on our next webinar. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.